Page speed is not about speeding up your website. Yes, you heard me correct. Page speed is about making more money, or in the case of a slow site, losing money. I'm sure you know that your website is one of your main marketing tools, and if it loads slow, people are more likely to bounce off your site and go somewhere else. The world is running faster and faster, so if your website speeds are not keeping up, you know the outcome. Lost potential new clients, frustrated existing clients, wasted advertising revenue, and the list goes on. As well as losing money from a slow loading website, you can also lose credibility. Here's the speed report of a leading business entrepreneur. Today, he's a #1 global leader in his field. He was one of my very first early clients for SEO about 15 years ago when he was based in Singapore. He's an amazing guy, but this is his current report from GT Metrics and Google today. His site fails all Google Web Vital metrics and fails them miserably. GT Metrics gives his homepage a big fat F. Imagine his competitors having a field day with that one. His TTFB, time to first byte, is a massive 980 milliseconds, nearly 1 second. His fully loaded time is 9.4 seconds on mobile. His Google rankings are the same, with a sad 20% on mobile and a sort of okay 73% on desktop. This is all very embarrassing to say the least. If he passed all the Google Web Vitals, he could probably make an extra easy 2 million every year from new traffic to his site, because he has amazing and prolific content that will get better ranking, so his traffic could double if not triple from Google alone. And of course, that's not just this year, it's next year and the year after that as well. He's compromising his future growth through poor speed management. Page speed prints you money. It's a simple thing that is easy to see. So while you put off doing the work and failing Google's Web Vitals, you're losing money. And if you don't care about free traffic from Google because you run ads, guess what? You pay more for your ads if your pages are slow because of the way the bidding process is set up. And in some cases, if your page speed is very bad, you can actually run the ad as well. You got to fix the page speed issues. So there's no escape. Page speed is everything if you run a website. If you hire me directly to help you fix your page speed issues, you're looking at a cost of anywhere from $400 to $2,000 US. And in the end, you've learned little or nothing about page speed. So in a year, you're probably hiring me again because someone in your team messed up the page speed again. I get a lot of repeat business. That cycle goes on for years, costing you thousands and thousands over the years in fees and lost business. Doing this course will do 3 things for you. 1, save and make your money, the obvious. But number 2 is not that obvious. It will help you change your focus on how you create web content in the future. So the next time you publish a blog post, you would have probably checked the page speed before hitting the publish button. And number 3 is even less obvious. The next time you hire someone to work on your site design or site functionality, you'll be doing speed checks before and after to make sure your site speed has not been compromised by their work. And if you get really smart, you'll be building page speed metrics right into your contract deliverables. And finally, you'll be able to have meaningful, intelligent conversation with your contracts about choosing designs and functionality that will keep your site speed lean and fast. And seeing we're talking about value right now, a core value to you in taking this course is you get me. Yes, you get me. If you were to hire me as a consultant or hire me to do your page speed work, you get speed results, but little or no more, little or no knowledge, as I have already mentioned. If you did the work on your own and tried to fix up your speed issues on your own, it could take you many hours, in fact many days to figure things out on your own. I spent around 30 hours learning how to specifically speed up Elementor sites all through trial and error while working on my own new site crunchlist.com that I chose to build with Elementor. And I have over 5 years page speed experience already under my belt, so I have a massive skill set in place before I started. And it took me that long to learn all the issues and pitfalls and, above all else, find all the solutions. And it's those solutions I present to you in a simple and easy to follow way. You don't have to spend 10+ hours reading 30 different conflicting articles to be left at the point where you started, confused. Because most of the free information you find is weighted by someone trying to sell to you something. And after then, you don't need to spend another 60 hours trying to fix up the speed on your site. You can invest less than 1 hour of your time and get amazing results right off the bat and have solutions that will work for you. And when you do my courses, you get to access me for free as part of the course. I answer all your questions in the community forum. So what else do you need me to say? Well, you may want to know a little about me, especially so that it explains my unusual accent. I started in IT right out of high school when I was 16 as a computer programmer. I was born in the UK in the north, but I've lived longer now in Australasia and Asia than in the UK. I've lived in 6 different countries, so hence my mixed accent. I cut my teeth in the SEO industry in Singapore, where I created and ran a leading SEO company for around 6 years. After that, I migrated to page speed from hardcore SEO work, and I've specialized in page speed for the last 5 years, working personally on over 250 sites. I've created and run many businesses, so I know personally how hard it is to get to the top, and most importantly, how hard it is to stay there. That is why when you do one of my courses, my core focus is just that, helping you get to the top and stay there. Thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Thank you. So we've got a great lineup of information for you today, and for the Elementor Page Speed course, we've got it broken down into 6 different layers and 6 different backgrounders. There's a lot of information to cover. I wanted to design this course so that you can actually absorb things one step at a time. So I created 6 different layers of information so that you can cover off all the core information in each layer. And then I've got 6 backgrounders that will actually support each of those layers. So start off in background 1. I go into all the information about, is Elementor a good choice for page speed? Is it something that you should be choosing for page speed in the first place? And why Elementor is actually good for page speed? Then we go into layer 1, about being very careful about what you add to your page design, keeping things very simple. And there's a lot of information in this particular layer. Layer 2 then comes next, is using the Elementor advanced settings and experiments so that you can actually speed up the whole of Elementor with something that's built in at the back end. Backgrounder 2, we're going to run regular speed tests and how to do that, and using GTmetrix and of course using Google Page Speed. Layer 3, we're going now into some of these inner layers. The inner layer here, layer 3, is watch your fonts. We've broken down this into 2 modules, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is how you actually manage your fonts in Elementor. And then part 2, how do you actually simplify the removal of excess fonts, because it can be quite tricky. So we cover that in some good detail and give you some great tools. Then going on to backgrounder 3, we introduce you to a tool called Perform Matters. And you can get that at getus.at/performmatters. And this allows you to clean up any issues that can't be done in any other way. And I break that down into 2 parts, part 1 and 2 again. The intro and basics, and then some of the advanced features. For the next backgrounder 4, I talk about how you should be testing on a staging site. When you're first setting up your Elementor site, you don't want to be working on your live site when you're doing some of these speed optimizations, especially if you've got a lot of traffic coming to your site. So you should be setting on a staging site. So I'll give you some good information about how to do that, especially if your current hosting doesn't have a staging option. So layer number 4, we're getting deeper and deeper into resolving speed issues on Elementor. Image management, it's a core part of making sure that Elementor loads fast. Again, we're going to break that down into 2 steps, part 1 and part 2. We're going to start talking about desktop and mobile images, and then specifically go on to, on part 2, how you use Webp images and why you should be using that across your whole site. Getting into the next layer, talking all about icons and how you should be managing these properly in Elementor. Going into the next backgrounder 5, sliders. There's something that went out of fashion 5 years ago, but still a lot of people are using. So we're going to talk about why you should be avoiding them, and also image carousels, which are basically the same thing. Going deeper into the layers, layer 6, how you should be handling video properly on Elementor so that it may, for example, not be displayed on mobile, and how, for example, you can do a preview image rather than actually displaying the video straight off. So we'll cover all that off. In backgrounder 6, page caching. If you don't know what caching is, this is going to be your starting point to learning what it is, and using 2 specific tools that we'll be introducing you to, and 2 that I recommend, WP Rocket or Flying Press and Flying Press. I recommend both of these 2, and you can get WP Rocket at getus.at/WP Rocket and Flying Press at getus.at/Flying Press. So that covers a huge amount of information. This course is a very, very detailed course specifically designed for Elementor to get it running fast and staying fast. This will allow you to get to the top and stay at the top, which is what we're all about. As you may know, I have a full page speed course. It's a very in-depth course that gives a lot of information, gives you all the basics which are crucial to understanding page speed. This is an add-on to that particular course. It's highly recommended that you do that course first. So is Elementor a really good choice for page speed? So let's set the record straight. Any page builder is going to have a page speed cost, but you have to balance that with actually the requirements of what you need to build the site and maintain the site and the skills within your team. At the end of the day, you want something that is red hot or can be made red hot, but it also is a functional site builder for you. I've used it to build Crunchlets.com, my main website, where you can find all my different information and a lot of blog posts. Elementor is red hot as long as you do some specific things, and that you avoid doing other things. In this whole course, I'm going to teach you the things to do and the things not to do. So let's have a look now about how Elementor is red hot and what happens when we do some of the things that we shouldn't do. Let's have a look. So as you can see clearly here, this Elementor site is loading in less than 1 second, 0.85 seconds. That's very fast. Now this site is not ultra optimized, it can be optimized even further, but you can see Elementor here is fast and it passes all the different metrics here. Everything's passed, there is no problems whatsoever. Even on Google, it's getting 100 out of 100. So as you can see, Elementor is red hot. So what can make an Elementor site slow? That's a great question. And the answer is you. Plus your designer and developer, of course. Out of the box, with a simple setup, with a fairly simple page, without any whizzybang stuff, Elementor is fast. So what actually slows down Elementor apart from you? Of course it's you, because you are choosing what to add to the page. Of course it's your designer, because they're making suggestions and adding it to the page. And the trick is, once you add something, is test, test, test. So let's look at a few things that actually slow an Elementor site down. Number one, choosing a poor, quote unquote, heavy theme. The theme that you choose is very important. There are actually two themes that I recommend. One is GeneratePress, getters.at/GeneratePress, and the other one is the native theme for Elementor, which is the Hello theme. And the Hello theme does have a child theme. It's not in the standard download. If you go to getters.at/Elementor-child, that will take you to a document that tells you all about how to integrate it and specifically where to download it off GitHub. It's good practice to put in a child theme. Number two, using too many fonts and font weights on a page. So every time you actually add a different weight to a font, for example 900 or 700, that actually needs another font file. If you make an italics, that's another font file. So having too many fonts and font styles will actually slow your site down. So as you can see on my Crunchlets site, there's only 3 resources being loaded for fonts. Number 3, using too many WYSI features including transitions, especially when they're above the fold. Above the fold, of course, is the content that appears at the top of the screen first, on the very first screen. You want to keep everything as simple as possible. Number 4, poor hosting. Your hosting is crucial to your speed of your website. This site is hosted on Cloudways using a DigitalOcean server. I highly recommend Cloudways. To get access to Cloudways, getters.at/Cloudways. Number 5, no caching, or of course poorly configured caching. I recommend 2 caching plugins. The one is Flying Press and the other one is WP Rocket. You can get WP Rocket from getters.at/WP Rocket and Flying Press from getters.at/Flying Press. These are the only 2 plugins that I recommend. I've used all the others and these are the best. They always get results. Number 6, using too many plugins. It's so easy to add more and more functionality to your site, but seriously resist doing that if you want a fast loading site. Reduce the number of plugins and keep it to an absolute bare minimum. And now the final one, number 7, using too many tracking codes. Often you want to add more and more marketing tracking to your actual site, and these drastically slow your site down. There are ways, of course, to sidetrack some of the speed effects, but it's not easy to do that for some of the tracking codes. It really depends on the tracking codes and how they need to load on the site. So there you can go. You can see that Elementor is really red hot. It can run a red hot fast site. You've just got to be careful what you do to the actual site that you build and your designer. Now, if you haven't got Elementor Pro, I highly recommend it. It's a great site builder for building your site with. If you want to get yourself a copy, go to getos.at/Elementor. And what you might not know is that Elementor also offers a hosting package, which is a really good value. So just be careful how you build and what you build, and be careful of all the add-ons and all the extra plugins you can get for Elementor that will improve the functionality. Elementor Pro, out of the box, gives you almost everything that you need to build a red-hot site. So just be careful what you add and how you add it, and you'll do really good. So just to reiterate, what you add to your site, what your designer does, and how you create the whole design with Elementor makes a big difference to the speed. Let's have a look about adding some whizzybang stuff now to show you the speed impact. I'm going to say it many times, and you'll hear it many times, but it's something that you need to start doing. Run tests before and after you've added new functionality to your pages. This way you get to learn exactly the speed cost for the things that you add to the page. Some things like sliders, depending on what you do and how you do it, can actually not have a massive speed impact. But if you do it in the wrong way, it can have a huge impact. So you must test before and after. Let's have a look now to see what happens when we add some whizzybang functions. Let's have a look. We've got to keep the complexity of the pages as simple as possible to get the maximum speed. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't have some elements, but you do need to test your speed. Let's have a look at the current speed. As you can see here on the report for this test page, if we go to the waterfall tab, scroll down, we've got 11 requests in here of a total of 167 kilobytes. Take a mental note of that, 11 requests, 167. That creates the weight of the page. Now, let's have a look at adding some extra buzzy bits and fuzzy bits, and a lot of extra whizzy functionality. And this is where we're getting carried away on the page. Just have a quick look at this. Yes, add. Okay, let's save that. And there it is. You can see a lot of the stuff we've just added, like sort of all the different bits and pieces. Let's go back now to the GTmetrix report and rerun that to actually see the impact of adding all this stuff in here. So here we go. It's run the report. What we need to do now is scroll back down to the waterfall tab. This is the best place to see all your resources in one place, all the requests. And there we go, 35 requests weighing in at 238 kilobytes. So if we remember the original figures, it was 11 requests weighing in at 167 kilobytes. That's a big chunk of extra code. Most of that is JavaScript, and a lot of the other parts of that is CSS and possibly some images as well. So there you go. Some real-life examples of what actually happens to the speed, especially things like LCP, which are crucial to your actual Google ranking. So a big trick is avoiding adding extra stuff to Elementor, like Ultimate add-ons. It sounds great, there's some great functionality, but Elementor Pro, out of the box, has got great stuff. Every time you add more and more layers, the slower your site will become. Elementor is really cool because it brings out improvements in the form of experiments, and it gives you access to those as a live user. So instead of waiting months and months for things to be tested, it creates experiments, and these are in the advanced settings, so you can actually choose them directly. Now, word of warning, they are experiments. But of course, by the time they get to this stage of being added to Elementor as an experiment, a lot of testing has gone on. So they're very stable. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be using a staging server to test things on. If you've got a very busy, active site, use the experiments and the other things I'm showing you in this training course on a staging site so that you don't compromise your live site. Let's take a look now at some of the things that you can be setting on and things that I use all the time and are very stable and have had no issues with them as long as you've got a simple site. Let's take a look at some of those experiments now to see some of the things that you can switch on and that you can have a play with on your own sites. Let's take a look. To get access to the actual settings, we need to go from the dashboard into Elementor and click on Settings. This will take us into here. Click on the Advanced tab, and let's do some of the settings in here. By default, we can choose External File, which is the recommended setting. That basically uses the external CSS files for generated spreadsheets. Scroll down then, now where it says Google Font Load, and choose the option for Swap. Now you're probably wondering what that actually does. Well, it solves this problem up here. Ensure text remains visible during web font load. So have a read of the article for yourself. There's the link. Come back now into the settings. Scroll right up to the top. We're going to go into experiments. Now, first of all, what are experiments? Well, Elementor is great because what it does, it keeps increasing its value and improving what it's doing. But the way it does that is give you access to those in advance as an experiment, and it's a great little solution. So in a sense, they're like beta options. Bear in mind that these can break your site. So scroll down and let's have a look at which ones we should set. Improve asset loading. Let's make that active too. Improve CSS loading. Make that active. And as you can see, under each one is a note, so you can read about it, and there's a learn more. So if you're not sure about what these are, you can actually find out more. The settings I'm showing you here, I've had no problem with them whatsoever. And a lot of other people have tested them and tried them and they have no problems. The fact that they've got into this list here of experiments means that they're actually already pretty stable. But again, test on a staging site if you need to. Keep on scrolling down, inline fonts, make that active. Scrolling down even more, going down, checking. There we go. Stable features. So now we're going into the stable features. So these have come out of beta and they're actively involved, but they're still in the experiment stage. Optimize DOM output. Let's set that to active. Scrolling down, checking. So you should keep an eye on these from time to time because they'll change. These settings are valid in 2022, but in a year's time, there might be extra options in here, making Elementor even more efficient and faster. Save the changes and remember to clear your cache, all your caches, and then retest your site fully. So there you go. Great little tools there for you to play with Elementor. Great ways to speed up your website. So you've heard me say it many times already. Test, test, and test again. Test before you change something on a site and test it afterwards. Let me show you some key tips though of how to use GTmetrix, the tool of choice that I use for all my speed testing. It's a brilliant tool, as you will learn. Go and register, go and sign up. Let me share with you a key resource so that you can use this to learn a lot more about GTmetrix and find out 15 key user tips. Let's have a look. Go to gtmetrix.com, sign up and register, and then do a test. Simply put in your URL, click on the settings here, click on Analyze, and away you go. Now, you must keep an eye on page speed insights as well. It's the Google tool. Now, it uses the actual base reporting module, which is the Lighthouse module, the same as what GTmetrix uses, and it gives you the information in a slightly different way. You must keep an eye on page speed insights. Don't ignore it, but it's not a very good testing tool as you make changes on your site to see the fine granular changes, the effects that they have. It's not easy to see. Keep your eye on it. Test it every so often when you make major changes. Come into here and test it, especially your mobile speeds, because remember it's mobile first now on Google. But use GTmetrix as your main testing tool. That is my high recommendation. It's so much easier to use. And I'll show you some little tricks and tips in a second. Now here's a great article about what is the best page speed testing tool for 2022. It answers the question, why should you use GTmetrix over page speed insights? I've told you a few things. Read this article and there's a lot of extra information in here and some good little tips. Now let me point you to some great user tips for GTmetrix so that you can become a pro user super fast. If you go to getus.at/ESSONE, that will take you into the document here that will show you the links. So right at the top, there you go. Get yourself a GTmetrix account, create it straight away. It's free. Then here's the 3 links. Just open them up and I highly recommend you read them right from start to finish. There's some great information in here. Each one has got the link to the next part, and there's 3 parts. In total, there's 15 different tips here to help you becoming a pro user. So have a read. So there you go. Go download those 2 documents now, go and access them, go and check out those links, and go and start reading that content. One of the things that can cause you speed issues, and it may seem like a small thing, but it actually can become a significant thing for page speed, is your fonts and how you manage those. There's sort of something hidden behind the scenes, and it's very easy to forget about them. However, it very quickly can actually slow your site down. You have to be very careful about the different types of fonts that you use, the number of fonts, and the different type of styles. The styles being italic, and the different strengths of bold, like bold 900, 700, 500, 300. Within Elementor, you can control all these different aspects. What a lot of people don't realize, for example, is Poppins. Poppins 900, Poppins 700 are 2 different font files. Poppins 300 is another font file. That means 3 requests, 3 resources need to be downloaded for those different variations. I highly recommend you keep your pages to 2 fonts and 2 font types. That means you'll load 4 resources on each page. Now, it's not too difficult to do that, and you still get some great designs. Let's have a look at what I'm talking about now inside Elementor so you see exactly what I mean. Let's have a peek. First of all, let's find out how many fonts are actually on the pages. So we're going to use our test Elementor elements page here. We're going to scroll down to the report. We've already run the report. Click on the waterfall tab, and you'll see here all the requests. You can click on a subset of the requests. So click on the font button here, and that will show you just the font files. You got all the other options here, so you can actually filter the other types of requests, such as the images or JavaScript files. So you'll notice we've got 3 requests on our current page. So let's go back now to our page, edit it, go a bit crazy, go a bit wild. Let's add a lot of wild different fonts on here and just mess this page up a little and just make it a little bit different. Remember at this point, the font weight, if you've got a 900 weight versus a 600 weight on the same font name, it's actually 2 different files, has to be downloaded, 2 different requests. So just remember that you must be minimizing the number of weights of each individual font, as well as minimizing the number of fonts. Okay, back to GT metrics, and again remember test, test, and test. So here we go down to our waterfall tab, and click on the font button to create a subset, and notice straight away we've got 9 requests. So it's gone from 3 till 9. So we've added 6 requests just by adding those extra font changes. Let's have a look at the actual history. Come up to the history tab, and you'll see now what the difference is between the 2 reports. We'll zoom in on those 2 reports. You can see the changes immediately. You see the big increase in speed between the 2 reports. It's not actually big, but do remember that this is a highly optimized site. So all these small things, you must be focused on the small things if you want to get especially under 1 second page loads. Let's actually compare the reports. So that will compare it to each other. And you can see the one on the left has got all the new fonts. And we scroll down to the film strip down the bottom. We can see in a microsecond the difference that's happened here just by adding those extra fonts. The last thing to remember is that not all fonts are equal. Some fonts can be like over 200 kilobytes in size. Others can be 20 or 30 kilobytes. Each font is very different. So using simpler fonts can also reduce the actual page load weight and increase your site speed. So there you go. Now you see what I mean. How important it is to keep your fonts very simple within Elementor, and it will have a big impact on your page speed. If you've got an existing Elementor site, you've inherited it or created it yourself, you may have not been aware of all the fonts that have been loaded on a page. And it's very, very time consuming to go through and try to find the fonts using Elementor. The easiest thing is to use a tool. It's a browser extension tool called WhatFont. If you download that and install it inside your browser, and it works fine for Chrome and Brave, and I'm pretty sure there's a version for Firefox too, then you can quickly go through the page, any page on your site, and find the font weight, some of the font styling, the font color, a lot of font details, which will help you to standardize your page. And at the same time then, restrict your page just to 2 fonts, which is what I've recommended, and 2 styles, which is what I recommended per font. So you end up with 4 requests to actually load your fonts per page. Let's have a look at how to use that tool now with inside Brave browser to actually see how you can actually find the fonts, and then you'll be able to change them within Elementor. Let's have a peek. So let's have a look at that WhatFont extension. First of all, you need to install it inside your browser. So go search for WhatFont extension and you'll find it in here. There we go. So it's a Chrome extension. I'm using Brave, so it works fine on there too. And then you just install it. When it's installed, you'll see the little icon sitting up here, WhatFont. Okay, let's test out now the WhatFont extension. So I'm going to come into here into my Crunchyroll site. This is my website where you'll find everything about what I'm doing, all my different products, all my training courses, a lot of information underneath here under the articles. If you look under the shop here, you'll see all the different products that I actually have. Let's have a look at this page now with WhatFont. Click on it, and now as you hold over a specific area and click, it gives you the information. If you just hold, it gives you the information. If you click, it gives you the full information. If you hit the escape key, it actually closes it down, which is great, and closes all the windows. So you have to come back in here and actually have a look again. So that's Poppins, but what size of Poppins? Let's have a look. It's a 50px Poppins. It's got a line height of 50px as well, and there's its color, and it's showing a nice little color there. So isn't that really cool? And it shows you the font breakdown over here, the font family. And specifically, it's showing you the weight. One of the problems that you're going to be faced with is having multiple weights of the same font on your site. And this is one of the problems that you'll have to remove. On this site, we have 2 weights for Poppins, a 300 and a 600, and that's it. If we have a look down here, you'll see Open Sans. Now we're only using 2 fonts on this whole page, on the whole site in fact, Open Sans and Poppins. And you'll see here it's 300. And again, we're only using 300 and 600, 600 for bold. So as we scroll down, let's have a look at a bit more. So we can see here, that's what it is, and it's a 600, and it's a normal style. So if you ever need to replicate your actual CSS for any of these things from another web page, this is just a brilliant tool because you've got all the information here, and if you can just keep clicking, it'll keep them open. Now, last final little plug, if you want a little bit of free stuff, right down the bottom here, you can get some free speed tips, and just pop in your email address and your name and your website, and I'll give you some free tips about your own site. How cool is that? Just click on that. So you can see here, that's Open Sans, and off we go, it's a 300. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the value of this particular plugin. And it's just a brilliant extension for Chrome and Brave. And use it to actually reduce and simplify your pages. It's so important to actually reduce the number of fonts on your site to an absolute bare minimum, as we've already mentioned. There you go, great little tool. Go download it now, install into your browser, and go play with it. And check out some of your existing pages to see what they look like for the font usage. When Elementor was first launched, it used to have a lot of excess code, which would make it fairly slow. They've done massive amount of work on this to reduce the amount of code being loaded across the site. So now, the only code that is loaded on a page is what is used on a page. And that's just brilliant. And that's what makes Elementor fast, because you can control what goes on the page, which means you can control the code being loaded, which controls the speed. The thing is though, there are some things in Elementor that you might not be able to tweak or remove. However, Elementor keeps bringing out new experiments, and you'll see in one of the other modules how to actually activate those to actually remove excess code and make Elementor as fast and as lean as possible. There are times though when you want to manually remove code, especially from other plugins other than Elementor. A great little tool to use is called Perf Matters. It's a brilliant tool. You can get it from getos.at/perfmatters. It's a paid tool, but a very, very, very good tool and very well built. If you want a free version of a similar tool, you can use something called Asset Cleanup. This is a very good tool, but the interface is not as nice, but it's still a very good tool. Let's have a look now at Perf Matters in action so you can see what type of work it does and how you can actually use it. The way Perf Matters is set up, it has something called a script manager. This allows you to actually edit the scripts on every individual page of your site. Notice here that we're in testing mode. That means that any changes you make are only visible to people who logged in as an admin. We'll come on to soon of how to actually switch this onto live mode. As we can see here down the page, it lists all the different scripts that are actually loaded on this page, and you can switch them off or on. And then notice you can actually choose the location where they're off and on. So for example, Elementor Web CLI is actually switched off everywhere on the site. But there are other options like the current URL, post pages, landing page, my templates, and so on. You can also change the settings for different users or different devices. And of course, you've got a regex, which is basically a special programmed entry at the bottom. It displays the types, in this case JavaScript, and the size, 161.6 kilobytes. As we scroll down, you can see all the different resources and requests that are loaded for this just single page. Now, right now we're looking at the home page. In the different sections, you can see the size of the different sections. So the Smart Post Show is 229.5 kilobytes. So as you can see here, if you add all these up, that gives you your size of that section. There's a lot of scripts here that are actually loaded. And of course, any changes you make, click on Save. Let's now have a look at that one that is switched off at the moment, which is the Elementor Web CLI, and it's switched off as everywhere. If we click on the global view here on the left, we can see everything that is switched off globally, as in everywhere, and there it is. Let's go into settings now on the left, and let's have a look about where that testing option is actually switched on and switched off. So there it is. So right now it's switched on. So right now it's switched off. So that means that everything is live. As soon as you click on save, the settings are live to the world. So now we understand that the script manager allows you to change the settings on an individual page. There are global settings as well. If we come into the dashboard, go scroll down, go into settings and go into Perf Matters, this will take you into the global settings. As you can see here, you've got a menu up the top here, you've got the options, tools, license support menu at the very top. And down here, all the options that are actually affecting the whole site, and you can switch them on or off. And you can get a help very easily from the question mark. If you click the question mark rather than just mouse over it, it will actually take you to a fully documented site, which gives you a tremendous amount of further information. Let me close that down. So let's scroll down here. You can see all the different settings. Right now, they're all active on this site. These are a great set of settings, and it just cleans up a lot of clutter on your site, as well as has some very positive speed benefits in most cases. Let's have a look at the assets now, and this is where we actually switch the script manager on or off. By default, it is off. So if you do not see a script manager option on the menu when you open up a page or a post, then you need to come into the assets area here and switch it on. You've got a lot of other options in here now, global options, you've got preloading options. What I tend to do is leave WP Rocket, or if I'm using Flying Press, I leave those to actually manage a lot of these settings, the preloading and the lazy loading. The fonts though, I tend to control here in Perf Matters. You've also got CDN options and Google Analytics options. I recommend you set up your Google Analytics in here rather than adding an extra plugin to manage your Google Analytics. And if you do have a CDN, you can set up your CDN options in here. So that's really cool, isn't it? Remember, using a tool like Perf Matters, you really should be using a staging site, a staging server, because this can break your live site. There is a test mode, which is highly recommended, but do remember once you switch on live, you're going to have to do thorough testing, which you really should do on a staging server first. The more speed work you do, you will find that some of your plugins that you use have a crossover functionality. So for example, between WP Rocket or Perf Matters, they may do some similar functions, and Elementor has speed functions inside as well. You're going to need to make a decision at some point about which tool you use for which types of functionality. One of the great tools though inside Perf Matters is the ability to load Google fonts locally. What that means is that instead of loading the fonts from the Google servers, the fonts are loaded from your server. Now that has a lot of benefits, is specifically around speed, but more specifically around site stability. Because if your server is up and running all the time, then your fonts are going to be loaded, your whole site's going to be loaded, everything is running. It doesn't matter what's happening around the world on the internet. If your site's up and running and the connections to your site are good, then your visitors will get a good, clean experience. If you're loading resources such as fonts from third-party servers and there's problems with the DNS or the local servers or something outside your control or the final source server, if there's a problem, then that will affect your site. By having everything on your site, then you can avoid those problems. Let's have a look now how you can load your fonts locally using Perf Matters, because it's a very useful technique. Let's have a look. Here in the waterfall view, let's click on fonts to just show the fonts, and you can see the fonts are loaded by Perf Matters and that they're loaded locally from the actual site. Let's have a look at Perf Matters settings now. Coming back into here, click on fonts, and you'll notice here that it says local Google fonts is switched on. Let's just save that and do a test now. So it's disabled. Let's now rerun the report and see actually what happens. We need to clear a cache first, of course, any caches that we've got. Let's rerun that report. Again, let's have a look at the waterfall tab and see what's going on. Click on the fonts, and now you see it's changed. Three of the fonts, the three fonts that we have on this file, the Google fonts, are actually loaded from GT Static, which is the Google Fonts site. Now, one of your big questions is going to be why does that matter? Surely Google servers are very fast. Why do I need to put the fonts onto my own site? And what happens if they get outdated? So there's a whole set of questions around this, and there are pros and cons about having them on your site or leave them on Google. One of the problems for speed is that if you rely on a third-party server and something happens to that, and it's a critical resource like a font, your page is very slow to load. Now, of course, Google doesn't usually go down, but depending on where you are in the world, there might be a problem with other servers like a DNS server. There could be other issues going on that you have no control over, and this could affect your site for 1 day, 2 days. Right now, I'm having issues with GTmetrix on the DNS. In our part of the world, it loads very slow. I've contacted them, and of course, there's not a lot they can do because they don't control those DNS servers. Having the resources on your own site bypasses all that. And because these are fonts, they will also be cached on your own server as well. And in people's browsers, they're usually cached. So fonts tend to load very quick. But at the end of the day, if a font is loading from a third-party server, there are risks because you do not control those servers. My rule of thumb is to try to keep as much on my site as possible and then use CDNs to actually spread the resources around the world. One last thing you might have noticed earlier is that the display swap option in the fonts area was actually on when you first saw it. One of the things that you need to make a decision of when you start loading different plugins is the delineation of the different functions. There will be some crossover functions between your different plugins like WP Rocket, Perf Matters, Elementor. Now in this case, this is a typical example of a crossover function. Elementor will do this same function. It's an option inside Elementor. I highly recommend you do that within Elementor and not inside Perf Matters. And in WP Rocket, again, you need to create delineations. Local Google Fonts is not available inside Elementor right now, and neither is it available inside WP Rocket. So that's why I'm doing it inside here. As long as you make a clear delineation and everybody knows about that, you'll be okay. So there you go. A lot of advanced functions and a great way where you can actually set it so your fonts, your Google fonts, are loaded locally off your hard drive. And as you can see from the testing using GTmetrix, you can visually see in a matter of seconds where your fonts are being loaded for, so you know it's all working great. So I've mentioned a couple of times now about staging sites and testing things like Perf Matters on your staging server. Many hosted providers actually give you free staging options. The thing is, they're not always that easy to use, or somebody else might be using it for something else. A developer might be doing some work on there, and you just want to do some work, but you don't have access to it. A great solution is something called Cloudways. Now, of course, you can host your own sites on that server system as well. That's where we host our sites. Crunchlets.com is on a Cloudways server using DigitalOcean backend servers. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can use Cloudways as a staging site. And it doesn't cost you much money either. You only pay per hour for what you use. And often it's a very small amount of money, like 1.3 cents an hour. So if you only need a staging site for a day or 2 days, it's very cheap. And then when you finish with it, you can just get rid of it and delete it. If you go to getus.at/Cloudways, that allows you to actually create a free account. And you can try and test out Cloudways for free. And you can migrate your site across with the simple and easy plugin. Let's have a look now how you can create a staging site on Cloudways, and it just costs you 1.3 cents an hour, and it's a red hot server. Let's have a look. Okay, let's dive in and create that server. First of all, you need a Cloudways account. getus.at/Cloudways. Click on Start for free. Come in here now and fill in your basic details to register. Got a promo code? AffyBoy20 will get you 20% off your first month if you move ahead with this service. Of course, you've got to agree and then click on the Start for free. The great thing about this service is that it's a 3-day full trial. You don't need a credit card, there's no charges, and basically you can dive straight in and create yourself a server. And you can even migrate your current site across to test it if you want. So off it goes. It's going to create your account. And then what we need to do now is actually create a VPS server, which is a pretty easy thing to do. It's just a few button clicks. We'll come into this screen here and we can pre-install a number of applications. We're going to choose WordPress. We're going to give it a name. Let's give it Test. Let's be creative. You can give your server a name as well. So you've got your app and server name. And now you choose your service provider. You've got multiple service providers you can see here. This is one for DigitalOcean, and you can see below the prices for each of those service providers. So all the different options are on a nice little slider there. So that's the 1 gig premium, and you see it's $12 a month. And it's 1 cent an hour. So for using it for a staging server, that's important to realize. It's only costing you 1 cent an hour. Choose your data center. DigitalOcean has quite a number. Volta has different data centers and different plans and different prices. So you can choose whatever provider you actually feel the best about. I go for DigitalOcean. I've used them for a long time and I've been very happy with the stability in the service. So in this case, we're going to go for a 1 gig and launch. So for a staging site, we don't need a pretty heavyweight server, but you notice the premium options. In this case, we're just going to go for a 1 gig, the bare bones site to test out. Now, if you need more capacity and more speed for your testing of your staging server, of course, you need to use a larger server with a greater amount of capacity. This server is going to cost us just 1.3 cents an hour or $10 a month. So we can blow this server away in 20 minutes time and only pay 1.3 cents. That's the beauty of using Cloudways as a staging site. And as I've mentioned before, you can migrate your site very easily using the plugin. There you go. Pretty cool, huh? So now you know a great way to test your site without actually having your own staging site, or if it's too difficult to use your own staging site, to use a third-party site like Cloudways to get up and running. I do offer a migration service and some configuration services if you want, so check out my site at crunchlets.com and go into the shop. That'll give you access to all my products and services in one easy location. Not too long ago, Google brought out something quite significant called mobile first. What that was Google focusing in on page speed from a mobile perspective, as in somebody using a mobile device, mobile internet, and how fast does your page load across that type of network. This happened because of the increased usage of mobile systems. The question is your site designed and created for mobile first? As in, will it load red hot in less than 1.5 seconds on a mobile network? If you go into the Google testing tool, do you get great ratings on mobile? 90% of my clients get very, very poor ratings on mobile. That's what creates a lot of work for me these days. How you build your site in Elementor for mobile is very important. There are some great tools inside Elementor, but they're not automatic tools. You need to change your building processes just a little. So you need to be aware of how to create mobile-first websites. Let's have a look now about Elementor, how you actually create a mobile view of a specific element within a page, so that then you can control your mobile speeds a lot better. Let's have a look. Let's have a look inside Elementor about how we can control about what objects are loaded in what view, as in desktop, tablet, or in mobile view. Click on one of your elements first of all to select it, and then go into your Advanced tab and scroll down to your responsive area, and you'll see down here under the visibility section, and you can hide on different devices. So let's switch on responsive mode and see how that looks. So they're in tablet view, now in mobile view, in desktop view. You can actually see what's going on there. Now let's just hide them. And you see the hashing actually occur on the section that we've hidden because we've selected the section. That means that it's not visible on this view. Now, one of the problems that you might create is you hide it on all three sections. That means you cannot select it to actually edit it. So if you open up your navigator, first of all, check the section is the correct one selected by hitting on the eye icon. So make it hidden and then make it visible again. And now you can actually change the settings accordingly. Remember, when you build a page, you're creating a page from a certain structure. You have sections, you have images, you have blocks of text. Each one of those has a set of settings, and most of them have visibility options. So you see here on the text section, if we go into the advanced, scroll down and go to the actual responsive section, we've got the same. We can hide or show on different devices. My recommendation is that if you've got different things happening on different devices, to actually replicate the whole section, the section's not that big, so that it's very clearly visible in your edit view about what is displayed where. Rather than, for example, a block of text maybe being visible on desktop but not on mobile, replicate the whole section. And then that way you can actually visibly see what's going on each particular part of your page when you come to edit it in the future. So there you go, pretty cool, huh? So now you should be going through your existing pages and having a look at how you created those elements. So you might have a lot of work to do if you've got a large site to actually make it really red hot for mobile. An amazing image format that is really taking off now is Webp. It was an image format originally created by the Google team. When it first came out, it wasn't compatible with that many browsers, but today it is 100% compatible with all the latest versions of every browser. There is no reason now you shouldn't be using Webp for your image format across the whole of your site. Now, of course, if people are using old browsers and you are serving an industry that may be serving to people who don't update their browsers that often, then of course you may not be able to just jump 100% to Webp. 99.8% of websites though can jump straight to Webp. So why are you waiting any longer? A lot of people these days use image converters like Imagify to convert your JPEGs and PNGs into Webp. Really, you should be creating all your images at source using Webp itself. Let me show you now how you can create a Webp image using Photopea. This is an online version of a cut down version of Photoshop. Let's have a look now and see how you can do that. So as mentioned, using Webp images is the way to go. A good little tool, if you don't know about this one, is the image size info as an add-on for Chrome and Brave. This is a great little extension, and you can basically find out image information very quickly by using View Info. Just right mouse click. One of the challenges you might have is actually creating Webp images. You shouldn't really be using any converters unless your site is an existing site with a lot of JPEG and PNGs on there. If it's an old site, you ain't got a lot of choice because you'll need to convert those old images into Webp electronically using a plugin like Imagify. When you're creating new content though, from now on, I highly recommend you go and create Webp images. And this is a great tool, Photopea, and it's like a Photoshop cut down online. It's free. It's a brilliant tool. I use it all the time. Let me create a new image and I'll show you a comparison between PNG, Webp and JPEG. Let me just find a nice little image. Let's see if I can find a cute bunny. Cute bunny is the one. Cute bunny. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, I'll get rid of all the extra stuff that I don't want. Now go up to the File menu, choose Export As, and you'll notice in here that there is no Webp option. So you go down here to the More, and there it is. Go to Webp, and you've got a preview here on the left, which is brilliant. And down the bottom here, it's telling you the actual size, 10.3 kilobytes. If you use the slider, you can see very quickly that the image actually degrades or improves. There's a degradation, and there's an improvement. And you can see the associated file size with that and the quality percentage. So you can do it to whatever you feel is appropriate. So in this case, about 10.5 seems like an okay one for this particular image. Now notice here there's the format Webp. I can go in and have a look at PNG for that. Now of course I need to change the settings. So if I look at the quality settings, we're going to end up with something like around here, 57 kilobytes, as you can see down the bottom here. That's huge in comparison to the Webp. Let's have a look at JPEG. And again, we're going to need to adjust the slider. Let's have a look. Okay, let's go down. Yuck. Oh, sort of okay, a bit grainy, bit grainy, bit grainy, like sort of similar to the quality, probably a bit too low. There we go. So that's 15 kilobytes. So you can see the difference straight away between the Webp at 10 kilobytes and the JPG. You're saving 50% on an image this size, which is a 600 by 600 image. So hopefully that gives you a good indication of the value of Webp to create your source files from now on using Webp. And there are other software that you can use if you've got Photoshop itself that produces Webp, and there are some other online editors that you can use. But to be honest, there's not too many systems currently supporting Webp for free, but this is one, Photopea. So there you go. There's an example of how you can create Webp on the web for free. Now, of course, if you've got things like Photoshop, you can actually create your own Webp images inside of that. I previously mentioned about fonts. Not many people realize that fonts can slow your website down quite a bit. Another thing that can slow your website a fair bit is icons. You'll often use icons throughout your site, throughout the headers and the footers and in the body of your content. But often you won't give a second thought about how those icons are actually created. One of the very common forms of icons is using something called Font Awesome, and it's built into Elementor. But the thing is with Font Awesome, there's not just one version of Font Awesome, there's many different types for the bold and the strong and the different effects. Every time you use one single icon from any of those different packages, it has to download the whole Font Awesome font for your users. That's a fairly big file, and it's pretty wasteful when you're just using one single icon out of the whole font pack. Now there's a couple of solutions to this. One, there is an experiment inside Elementor which will allow it so that if you are using one icon, it just installs that one specific icon. That's one way of doing it. There's another way is that you can install icons yourself. Let me show you now a great tool that you can use to create the icons for your site and install them and add them to your particular web page. Let's have a look. In the latest version of Elementor, there's a way to actually speed up the system by removing icons from the load by actually using one of the experiments. If you come over here into Elementor and go into Settings, over here on the top tab, you go to the Experiments tab. If you scroll down, you'll see that actually there's an option for inline font icons, and I've got this active right now. If you want to learn more, click on the Learn More here, and this is useful to point out because if you scroll down here, there's a very important note, which is this one. If you're actually using Font Awesome Pro icons, have a read of that for yourself in your own time. There's some good information there. So by setting this option, what it does, it stops Font Awesome loading as a font set. Instead, it converts it to an inline SVG for the actual icon that you use. An alternative could be to actually create your own icon as an SVG and add it in using Elementor. In almost every single place where you can add an icon within Elementor, you can actually have a custom icon as well. If you want to create your own custom icons, I recommend this site here, ICO Moon. It's a great little app. You've got a whole bunch of free icons here. Now again, it's not the full set of like Font Awesome, but there's still a lot of great stuff in here, and it will also make a site look a little bit different because everybody else is using Font Awesome. And when you're ready, you can generate the SVG file down here, and notice the little settings icon here, and you can change the color and give it some different information if you actually want to include the classes in here for the CSS, or if you just want the actual file itself. And then when you download it on your system, what it downloads is a zip file. So you need to expand that out. And then if you click on here, you can see all the other stuff that's in there, and it gives you a PNG as well as some demo files. And there's the SVG file in here, and there's the ones that you want. And it downloads all the ones that you've selected previously. So they're all in there. So it keeps on downloading them every time you actually add a new one. You'll notice here on the right hand side the actual size of these SVG files. Very, very small, very, very fast loading. And of course, because it's SVG, it actually auto expands because it's a vector file. So you have no problems with resolution on these icons. There you go. Go and create a couple of icons now with ICO Moon, and then you'll be able to add them to your website at any place you like. You've seen them everywhere. You may want to add them to your website. They're probably already on your website. Sliders. Get rid of them. Don't use them. Here's a couple of reasons why. 1, they slow your website down. 2, nobody likes them. 3, they don't work on mobile. Nobody wants to scroll sideways on mobile. They want to scroll down. Probably 60% of your site visitors are now using a mobile device. Sliders went out of the design fashion well over 5 or 6 years ago. At times they are useful. One of the useful places where I like to see them being used is where they're displaying client logos. This is where you have a client logo, it's 1.5 kilobytes in size, and you might display 6 or 7 of them on a scroller. And it does add a lot of emphasis and builds trust on your web page. But never ever put sliders above the fold. That's in the area that's visible right when somebody opens up the web page. If you're going to use a slider, make sure it's down below the fold, down halfway down the page or something like that, and minimize the number of images on that slider, and make sure every single image is optimized if you are going to use a slider. But better still, don't use them. Let's have a look now at a quick demo to show you a speed impact of using a slider above the fold, and how by adding a slider it can make your LCP, your largest contentful paint metric, fail. Let's have a look now. Let's take a look at that right now. I've created 2 sample pages with images at the top, one just plain images and the other in a slider, and we're going to compare the two. There's nothing else on the page. Here's the first one. This is a page just with images at the top. If we scroll down here on the report, go into the waterfall tab, and we have a look that there's 446 kilobytes of uncompressed file size. If we go to the other page and have a look at the size of that, we can actually see the weights are basically the same. We're using the same images, but 393 is the one with the actual slider on. So let's have a look at now the Sumo page, which is the one with the slider on. You can see the LCP is 1.2 seconds, and as we can see specifically, for a good user experience, aim for an LCP of 1.2 seconds or less. So it passes LCP, but with a but. This is actually at mobile speeds. If we go to the other one now, the one with just the pure images, we've totally passed it at 790 milliseconds, less than just over half a second to actually have the largest contentful paint. So there you go. That gives you a good indication of some of the impact of using sliders above the fold and how it can affect very important metrics like LCP. I get it, we're in a world of video these days, and you probably think that when somebody comes to your website, they want to see a video. It's not usually the case. If you use video on your website, it can destroy your page speed, especially if you use video right at the top of the page above the fold. I've had quite a few clients in the recent past who have had full width video on their sites above the fold right at the top, high resolution video. They come to me asking me to improve the site speed. The very first thing I say is get rid of the video. They never like it. They spent hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars creating that video, and it's a 20-30 second video. It's not a small video usually, and it's a huge file, and everything fails. The site speed is destroyed, and guess what? The video rarely loads before somebody wants to start scrolling. They don't want to see the video at the top. They treat the video as advertising, and everybody wants to scroll past it. If you're going to use video on your web page, make sure it's video that adds value to your content, not sales material. It must add value to the experience that the user is actually having, your visitor is having. Do not just plug video on your page without having core thought about the value of that video. And if you're doing a tutorial like on Crunchlets.com that I create, video adds value. It's great, but I never put it above the fold. I never put it in the first section of the page. I put it usually halfway down or below. That means somebody has gone down the page before they actually get to visit the video. And then they're highly likely to watch it if they feel it will add value to their viewing experience. With all that in mind, how should you add a video to your page using Elementor? There's a couple of tips and tricks that I can show you so that the video loads fast and actually doesn't add any weight to your page and it doesn't affect your page speed. Let's have a look at that now. So we're coming to here into our test page, and let's add a video into this page. So we'll create a new section, come across and click on video and drag the video in, and here we go. Now let's have a look at the settings. It's placed the default video in there. We haven't chosen a specific video. And if we scroll down here, we'll see a lazy load option. We should set that to yes. We want our videos to lazy load. And yes, of course, we should avoid putting videos above the fold. So we're going to use videos, we should use them further down the page. And one of the things we want to switch on is an overlay. What that means is that because it's lazy loaded, until somebody clicks on the actual background image, the video is not downloaded. This makes a massive difference in the actual speed that the page loads when you have videos on the page. So of course, use the right size image that actually goes into the video. Don't forget all your basics for your SEO. The play icon can be switched on or not. I tend to switch it on because it's a nice visual element. And of course, update. So the key thing to remember here, make sure your placeholder images are highly optimized like any other image, because they will be loaded when the page loads. So make sure they're the right size for the video that is being displayed. So there you go, a lot of information about videos, and now you know how you can add a video to a web page using Elementor so that it has no page speed impact. One of the key ways to make any WordPress website faster, including Elementor sites, is using page caching. There are two tools that I recommend, Flying Press and WP Rocket. I've used all the other page caching tools, and none of them get the results that WP Rocket or Flying Press get. They're either problematic for the setup, the configuration, they break certain aspects of the page, or a bunch of other different reasons. These two plugins are premium plugins. You're going to have to pay for them, but they're going to be some of the best money that you ever spend on your site. For example, just adding WP Rocket can increase your site speed by 4 or 5 times instantly if it's configured correctly. Let's have a quick look at those two tools now so that you can research them and look at using them on your own sites. Let's load up the two sites, WP Rocket using getters.at/WP Rocket and Flying Press using getters.at/Flying Press. So they're loading up now, these two pages. Let's have a quick peek at both of these. Here's Flying Press, the basic features in here. As you can see, there's the outline, the basic pricing is there. So you'll notice that that's $60 a year for the basic. And you got a CDN option, which is a very good value. In here, you got WP Rocket. And again, the pricing in here is slightly similar, but a little bit cheaper. But basically with Flying Press, you get better options on the CDN and your renewals are cheaper. So you choose for yourself. I highly recommend that you use one of these, and either one is great. They're both brilliant plugins. Like I said, Flying Press, the CDN options are really, really good extra option and tends to be a bit better than the WP Rocket CDN at the moment, but they're probably changing that. So keep your eye on things, but you must be using caching on your WordPress websites, full stop. For Elementor or any other WordPress, you must use page caching, and I don't recommend anything else. I've used them all, and I've played with them, and some are very hard to configure. Others break your site too easily. The support is not there. These two plugins have great support and great service, and they do not break your site in the same way. They're very stable, and they get results every time on any site I've placed them on. Now, this is not part of site speed, but let's not forget about monitoring our uptime. Uptime Robot, great little tool. I highly recommend you use that. You get like 50 free monitors on here for free. Once you've created an account, you can add in monitors for different sites. So your dashboard looks basically like this. Very simple, got a lot of information that is useful to you. Add a new monitor, click on there, and add your different monitor. So I'm going to do getos.at. And that's one of my other websites. So I'm going to do it for 5-minute intervals. Anything less, and you have to pay for the premium. So it's great. 5 minutes is normally okay for most sites. The timeout period you can set as well. And there we go. And you can add another one. In this case, I'm going to add one for one of my other sites, affyboy.com. If you're an affiliate marketer, check that site out. Free services, great way to store all your affiliate marketing information all in one tidy location. So remember, don't have a super red hot site and you're not monitoring it. What's the point of having a very fast site and it's down? So make sure you use Uptime Robot or something similar to monitor your uptime. I use Uptime Robot, as you can see here. 3 of my sites are on here, and I've just added 2 now, which it wasn't in here because I've just moved to Uptime Robot. So now I'm great. I'm pretty well protected in here. So there you go. Flying Press and WP Rocket. I highly recommend both of them.